Today's market call is presented by CME Group, where risk meets opportunity, and FactSet, financial data and analytics powered by tomorrow.
You ever wake up and not know where you are?
Yeah.
So no, I say you just.
I mean, I know at your age you're going to say it happens.
No, because this morning I woke up, I didn't
know
no
idea where you are.
No idea where I was.
Where are you?
Well, we're in Beverly Hills. We're at the Wheelhouse offices.
Well, right now we're in West Hollywood.
It's just Sunset
Boulevard.
There was a show called that in like the 50s, 60s.
Oh yeah.
You remember this or no?
Well, we're here. No, because I wasn't alive, but I get you.
But this is, so we're not in Beverly Hills?
So this is our main man, Brent Montgomery's operation here. We are in West Hollywood. We will be going to Beverly Hills when we're done recording.
Because when I drove in last night at midnight, there was a sign that said, "Welcome to Beverly
Hills." Which was really 3 a.m.
Like Eddie Murphy, and remember the scene?
Yeah.
No.
Which is, by the way, it was 3 a.m. New York time. When you left, it was Eastern time, and you get out here, and it's Pacific time.
We're in California.
Yeah.
It's market call.
Yeah, it is.
This is actually sort of fun. And we've done a lot already today.
Yeah.
And it's still like in the morning for us.
Yeah.
But it's 1 o'clock on the East Coast. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
We'll start with the fact that the Rangers haven't lost in the playoffs.
It's amazing.
You're aware of this.
Last time they had a 5-game
1994.
And what did they do in 1994?
They won Lord Stanley's Cup.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. And they looked good yesterday, although I will tell you, I didn't love their 5-on-5 play.
Okay.
But yesterday was one of those perfect days. Well, airport notwithstanding.
I know what you're going to say. Yankees won, Mets lost.
The Mets. Because all these asshole Met fans, like, they're winning this game. They're going to salvage one in Tampa.
Yeah.
And their closer's on the hill.
Yeah.
1 strike away. And then a Rosarina dials 9, and then they lose in an extras. It's perfect. You don't care.
But back to the markets.
Let's take a look at the rundown.
But you know what, Guy? Listen, here's one thing I just want to say. Well, they could throw the rundown up. We could talk about it. Why not? Well, there we are. We have what's at key support levels?
I disagree. I love Amanda, but stocks are at key levels.
Yeah.
Not support, maybe resistance, but at key levels.
Key
we're
levels.
Going to look at the reason why.
Yeah.
Buy gold for breakout, yes.
But we're gonna use a tight stop on that guy in the futures because there's some levels there that are pretty interesting.
We're going to keep a tight leash on this American. Remember, that's the scene in Hunt for Red October.
Yes.
Give that American a wide berth.
Yes.
And then semi-stock surging, that's alliteration.
Right back to it, man. They just cannot quit these stocks.
Let's see how that works
And
out.
you know what? There's a March 8th level for some of these names, and we're going to get to that a little bit here. But you know what's interesting, guys? So last Monday, we were doing market call, and we were basically saying this is like the big week. We got 160 S&P 500 companies. Yeah, 32. You did that math quickly. We're like, listen, we also had a Fed meeting. We had the all-important jobs report. We had a whole host of different things going on here. Yields were still a story. We started out last week. I think the 10-year was at 4.65. You've been mentioning that we have this QRA. We have all this longer-dated issuance and stuff like that. There should have been some upward pressure on yields, but I guess the data was weak enough. The earnings were not overly strong, but yet, you know what I mean? So you had yields come in, and then the major indices are just back up again.
That's the rub right now, right? Yeah. That's the conflict in yields. You can understand on one end why they're going lower. The data lately, at least for the last 3 or 4 weeks, has been soft. Not, obviously GDP was a big part of that, but ISM, the jobs number, obviously some of the supposedly dovish commentary out of the Fed. So you get it on the one end. The flip side of the coin is inflation is still a problem. Yeah. And by the way, you have all these debt issuances.
When's CPI? Is that
I think it's on Thursday, but
okay.
I got to go back and look.
Yeah, maybe they could put that in the chat.
There are a lot of important things on the horizon without question. So we'll see how these bond auctions go. I mean, that's going to be a big story.
All right, you mentioned this in some of the data, the GDP data in particular was weaker than expected, but some of the inflationary inputs were stronger. So if we start getting weaker economic data, weaker jobs data, but we continue to have hotter inflation data, I just don't know how yields go that much lower from here.
That's what I've thought for quite some time. So we're going to see, to couple with the fact that, and again, we don't have to get into this right now. Elizabeth and I talked about it on the tape podcast,
which drops in your favorite podcast.
Has it dropped
store
yet or no?
Probably pretty soon.
May drop.
If not,
it's going to drop.
Different conversation than you and I are having.
Much different. Well, no. I like that you say that because what you're saying is, folks, you should listen to that because there's going to be no overlap. I know what you did.
There's not going to be much overlap.
Just say it to the people. Don't hide behind it.
And I think
it's not cannibalization. But what I will tell you is we had a conversation about the Bank of Japan and what's going on there. They've intervened now twice in their currency. with some degree of success.
Yeah.
But we'll see how long that lasts. But I only mention that in the scope of at some point that's going to make its way into our bond market. So we'll see.
All right.
But today's the futures day.
Correct.
So
but in our bond market, I mean, you have that issuance. There's some pretty big auctions this week, right? And so let's see about that. Let's throw up the CME Fed Watch tool guy, because this is one, again, even though the perception, and you kind of alluded this, that Fed Chair Powell was a bit dovish, that got things. Listen, I don't know what the hell happened last Wednesday into Thursday. Do you remember we had whatever he said? Okay. We saw that huge spike. Okay. In the stock market, we rallied what, like 1%. And then in the last hour of the day, it gave it back. Okay. And you would have thought you would have gotten some follow through, right, on Thursday to the downside after you have that sort of reversal, and you did not. And they're right back into it. And so to me, is that investors just suggesting that rates basically, they're not getting a 5%.
We'll see. But I will tell you, that day that you're talking about, you basically had an 80-point rally in the S&P.
Yeah.
I'm probably rounding up. And then an 80-point sell-off in the S&P,
yeah,
all within the course of an hour. You don't see that all that often now. Obviously, nobody cared about it by the end of the week. And today, the market's sort of on its horse a little bit as well. We will go back to that day and say, that actually was pretty interesting. So we'll see what happens with yields. But we should take a look at the S&P chart, the futures chart, because we have a number of charts. We talked about markets that supported resistance. Well, we're at some pretty interesting levels. And we'll start with the S&P futures. Here we are. You know, we obviously never got down to the 200-day. I still think we will. We've breached the 50-day, traded through it. Now we're back up to it again. I think this is just a typical market reaction. You get through something, trade back to it. We'll see how it trades here. I think it's going to fail here. I think the next leg is down. They're going to be charts that look eerily similar to this. Let's talk about this real quick.
Yeah. And again, I mean, your point is that we had this move. It was probably what, like 5% from the highs, you know, early last month. It was predicated on some earnings. It was predicated on some over exuberance about just things in general, you know, and the like. And so here we are through, you know, that 50-day is interesting to me, you know, because I know a lot of traders are keyed off of that. So now you want to see if it can kind of build some momentum and make it back up above 5,300 and get back towards those prior highs. But I'm in your camp. I'm like, what are the catalysts going to be? The only catalyst that I could see right now, Guy, are that, and let's go back to the CME Fed Watch tool here, is if those, this is December, okay? So a lot of folks feel like, okay, we have this November 5th election. We have a Fed meeting 2 days after, I think it's November 7th. The likelihood of the Fed doing anything before that, unless it's some disaster playbook sort of scenario by lowering rates, is not going to happen. That's why folks are focused on December right now. And you can just see the probabilities. They're kind of going up, if you will, for the potential of 50 basis points lower, okay, by the December meeting or around this December
Which
meeting.
makes, if you think about it in the context of everything, that actually might make a little bit of sense.
Well, especially where we were starting the year.
Exactly. 6 rate cuts, again, never made sense to me when we were talking about that in October. At the back end of this year, if you were to see a 50 basis point cut in the end of the year, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Now the market, I think, is coming to some semblance of reality. However, this will start to become politicized now over the next couple months, without question, on both sides of the on the aisle. So I'm not suggesting the Fed is in any way political. However, you will hear it from both sides saying, you know, one side will say if they lower rates, it's because they want to help this administration. The other side will say that you have to lower rates because we're too strident right now. We'll see how it plays out.
You and I are convinced that that old playbook, okay, in this inflation environment of lowering rates doesn't do the thing that some folks might suggest. Because, you know, you and I were like listening to Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, and we're like, shut up already. When they sent that letter to the Federal Reserve, you got to lower interest rates. That could have done, and you made the point at the time, it could make all those things worse about, you know, inflationary pressures that are affecting most of America.
For the people that they care about. That would hurt them.
Bernie
the most.
and Elizabeth.
Yes.
They
and
just,
whether they understand that or not,
I'm not sure.
You know, it's interesting. If they don't understand it, that's a problem. And if they do understand it but say it anyway, that's a problem. It's a problem either way. Well, anyway, politics.
These are complicated topics. You know, there was Jared Bernstein. You saw this that was going around last week.
Was that seriously?
No, that was real.
No, it was not real.
It was.
Come on, honest to God.
Was real. And I met him. He's like a sharp guy, and he just couldn't. He could not explain. You know, it was about, you know, printing money.
No, I know what it was about.
Yeah, that was.
I actually asked on the Twitter.
Supposedly,
please tell me this wasn't
real. But the only point I'm trying to make is that, well, what do we try to do in Market Call? We try to make these topics a bit simpler. You know what I mean? Because they are difficult topics. Like, let's be clear. But a guy.
Yeah, but I'm not in that seat.
No, you're not.
I'm not in that
You're in a
seat. I don't
seat at
pretend to be
Wheelhouse
in
right
that
now.
seat.
Yeah, no.
I like the wheelhouse.
I
People.
thought
We
that
got
was
some great
troubling.
people. There are 3 people here with us.
They got a whole squad. It's like a proper operation here.
Huh?
Not like what we do. I mean, not that, hey, listen to our team
NASDAQ
back
futures.
All right, this is interesting to me, Guy.
Which
okay.
one?
So the S&P 500 on the year right now is up about 8.25%.
Mm-hmm.
The NASDAQ 100 is only up 7%. Okay. If you look at the NASDAQ, the E-mini futures here, look at that. It's not through its 50-day yet. We just talked about that with the S&P. Does that signal to you I know this is one of those terms that gets you, are we broadening out a little bit away from the bag 5 here? Because
I woke up, didn't know where I was, but I also woke up in a good mood.
Yeah,
now you're starting to ruin
I'm sorry
it.
about that.
I don't know what it's. I mean, I guess on a certain degree, you probably want this to be taking place, right?
Yeah.
You want the NASDAQ to sort of start to give a little bit back and then see it on the other side of the equation. That would suggest exactly that. I'm not quite convinced that's what you're seeing right now. However, as these charts are very similar, as I mentioned, the only difference is we're not through the 50-day on the upside yet. Now, we'll see. Part of that, by the way, I think, and we don't have to necessarily go down the Apple rabbit hole, but Warren Buffett over the weekend announced he sold a portion of his Apple position. I think
they own nearly 1 billion
No,
shares.
I get it. I think it's just portfolio management without question. I don't think it's an indictment necessarily. However, you have to take that into consideration. And the other thing that I mentioned, I put it on the Instagram. We have Instagram accounts.
Your Guy dot Adami on the Instagram.
Yeah, I'm blowing up.
And we're at Risk Reversal Media
on the Instagram.
Yeah.
And we sort of like each other's stuff. But Berkshire Hathaway now has $189 billion of cash sitting around.
Yeah.
Not because they're getting stuff in the bond market. I think it's because, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing, they're having difficulties trying to find things to buy.
Well, listen,
for whatever reasons, whether it's
Apple,
valuations in stocks or just interesting companies or some amalgam of that.
Is $165 billion right now. It's a huge portion. We were talking about it on Fast Money on Friday as a little bit of a preview into the Buffett Fest, Buffett Palooza, if you will. You know what I mean? No time for that. No, I know you haven't. I'm just trying to get your reaction to it. And it doesn't seem that positive.
I mean, there's very few things that I would wait online for.
Yeah.
So it's
and
legit.
iPhone's not one of them.
No, like if a dear friend passed away, I'd wait online at the wake.
Yeah. But to get into Buffett Palooza, the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting is not one.
It's not one of
But
them.
let me ask you.
I'm just being honest with you. I don't understand.
If you were on the desk,
I mean, Omaha's nice. I've been there. I went there once.
Yeah.
I had a speech.
Yeah, there's
like a Motel 6 type of place. Not really, but
I actually went there.
Creighton is in Omaha.
Yeah.
Jesuit school.
Yeah. It's also it is a Jesuit
That's where they play the World Series, the NCAA College World Series.
Correct. For it's like a couple weeks.
You're not interested. Please continue.
So if you were on the desk on Fast Money last night and I talked about, some of the biggest mutual fund complexes are like the top 2 holders. They own over 1 billion shares of Apple. They're never selling. They may tweak them here and there or whatever. If those companies if there is a report that iPhones cause cancer and those companies had to sell, I mean, this stock's getting cut in half.
Well, what have we said forever? That the biggest beneficiary of passive investing and the fact that the stock is in, I think, 317 different ETFs, of which it's one of the top 15 1-5 holdings.
Yeah.
Money flows in, Apple wins, regardless of what Apple's doing.
Yeah.
Regardless. When active becomes passive, that's concern. And even with the move we saw last week in Apple, which was significant, if you look at it today, if Amanda wants to throw up a real quick chart, I mean, it's not trading particularly well today. We'll see how this thing sorts itself out.
So I said this on Fast Money and you were not there, but I'm curious to what your reaction would be. I said it's the sort of Hotel California, of investments because you can get in, but you cannot leave. At 1 billion shares and there's 3 holders that have 1 billion, you cannot leave. It's kind of like that scene in A Bronx Tale.
Now you can't
leave.
Great scene.
Yeah.
Because, you try to be a gentleman. You ask these guys.
Chaz tried to be a gentleman.
He tried to I was going to use the F word.
He even wanted to buy him a drink.
He was.
Yeah.
He offered to buy him a drink, and then they were assholes. And then they got their asses kicked.
Will you guys put that in the show notes? They should put that in the show notes. It's one of the best scenes.
No, but all the tough guy biker dudes.
Not tough.
They get the shit beat out of them by a bunch of old Italian guys like me.
Yeah.
With bats.
I did the
and
Sopranos.
I'm not even kidding around.
Did the Sopranos ever riff on that? I've not seen it. I don't know. So you're not happy with this.
No, but the point is you just don't mess with old Italian guys.
Well, like
I don't give a shit who you are.
That's why we let you say and do whatever you want.
This is a PSA for folks watching and the guys and gals here. It's not the person in the bar who takes his glasses off you have to worry about. That's not the one.
No.
It's a guy that takes his watch off. you have to worry about him because he knows what he's
By
doing.
the way, and maybe
I'm talking about
maybe our friends
altercations.
here are going to find this interesting. I've been watching Peaky Blinders. This is one of the best shows
You
I've
admitting
ever.
to that?
Guy, I'm telling you, you'd be obsessed with this
That's
show.
not a cartoon?
No, this thing when they walk into bars and they say by order of the effing Peaky Blinders, and then all hell breaks loose. You would love this show.
That's the guy from Oppenheimer.
Correct. Cillian Murphy? Cillian Murphy? Yeah.
What are you looking at?
I don't know.
They're not going to answer you. They're not saying a word.
It's an Irish
they can talk.
I mean, like, and you like the Irish, so
I was just in Ireland.
I know you were.
All right, let's move on.
Let's move. Sorry, guys. And usually, we have a little studio audience here, so we're just kind of hamming it up.
I'm not. This is what I do every day.
It really is what you do every day. All right. So S&P futures outperforming the NASDAQ. Interesting to us. Maybe speaks a little broadening out. Let's pull up the BKX really quickly here because, some of the names in the bank index are doing some of that. Okay. You did have energy stocks come off a little bit. You've had industrials, acting pretty well. You pulled up a chart of the transports last week, which I thought was interesting. Well off. Despite like names like Delta, and you're saying they're calling it the U's, it's the Uber, it's the Union Pacific, and it's the UPS
and the UPS
and United. Okay, a lot of U's in
U's.
that one. And we're simple. We kind of but this is kind of interesting, to me, a little bit, guys. So I don't know. Again, let's see where this broadening out works as well too. I think that just putting a bow on the whole earnings conversation, we're going to get into retail earnings pretty quickly. We've talked about some of the quick serve restaurants. We talked about the trade down here. That might be really instructive, especially after we had that weak consumer confidence print. So again, we'll preview that. We'll get more into that, but that's where the broadening out has to be. But here's one for you. Russell 2000. Let's pull up the futures here.
Getting back right at those levels.
Yeah, but like if
right
Amanda wants to pull it out to a 5-year, it's still a pretty big wide consolidation and
100%.
still well off those 2021 highs. So until that breaks out of this long range, I'm not convinced on the broadening out theory.
I agree with you. So we're looking at through the lens of futures without question. That's a static chart. If Amanda quickly can throw up, if you just want an item, there you go. I mean, she's like in my head. It's unbelievable.
She's in your grill.
So, we traded down to about 193. Actually, if you look at this, we actually traded down
You like that little flag.
and held the moving average. So here we are. I mean, it's this tug of war going on in the Russell as well. I think lower rates are seemingly the beneficiary is the small caps. I get it. But on the flip side of that coin, if rates are going down because the economy is slowing down, these are the most economically sensitive names. They shouldn't be the beneficiary. So the market is struggling in the bond market. It's struggling with the IWM. And that's what we're seeing in real time right now.
Yeah. And just going back to, the BKX, and one of the things it's being driven by some of those big money center banks. JP Morgan had that huge gap a few weeks ago, but it's kind of made up a little bit of ground. It's filled in that gap. Goldman, Morgan acting a lot better. So the investment banks are acting better. KRE, though, small caps, if Amanda wants to pull that up really quickly, again, it kind of speaks to that relative underperformance that we've seen in the Russell. That can't really get out of its own way right now, which I find that interesting because you'd think lower yield takes less pressure off of, let's say, some of the securities that they hold. But what I think is pretty fascinating, this is about commercial real estate.
Yeah.
This is about that exposure, which hasn't gotten out of its way in the last year or so.
And it's not going to. It's going to be this slow drip. I think the market hopes all it is continues to be is a slow drip and not some sort of catastrophe out of nowhere in the commercial real estate sector. The best thing for the market would be, day by day, we sort of talk about commercial real estate, but nothing blows up. And 3 years from now, we're still talking about it. But there's nothing of note in terms of stories. Flip side of that coin is if something were to happen that would be obviously eye-opening for the market, then that KRE and some of these obviously small and regional banks, that's when things get dicey.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I guess you could make this analogy that people have been talking about commercial real estate blowing up in China for 15 years.
And it has.
So Evergrande and their consumer has much more exposure, as part of their net worth than ours do, right? But it has blown up, but it's really just kind of been a drain on growth and that sort of thing. But we're at growth at, sub 2% right now. I don't know. I guess it's interesting to bring up. I guess the more important thing is if it takes down more of our financial institutions, because I feel like we have more interconnectivity because we are meant to be a pure capitalist society where they are essentially planned capitalist sort of operation there. They can always bail out, the big institutions and not have a credit crisis, I guess, is the big issue.
I'd like to think we're a capitalist society.
I did the little air quotes for you guys.
I just want to emphasize we're sort of centrally planned. So real quick, Amanda, this is on the fly. If you could pull up a long-term FXI chart, because we flagged this one back in January into February. earlier this year.
You thought little
the
downside
FXI,
risk there, right?
You know, traded down to holy shit. She even has the support line.
Well, if she drew the resistance, the downtrend.
So, and if you look at this thing, you've had a pretty decent bounce here.
Yeah.
And I still think there's some room in the FXI. And Alibaba very.
No, I attach it. Amanda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the FXI, so there you go.
No, it's breaking out.
It's breaking
out.
And
right
Alibaba,
there,
by the way, has gone from, you know, sort of meandering around 71. And I think as an 80, I think it's trading $80 right now. I haven't looked today necessarily, but, you know, so very quietly, these Chinese securities are actually doing pretty well, somewhat counterintuitively. But if you watch the show, it sort of makes sense. I think in the technical level. Quick, we take a look at crude oil because I think we're at pretty interesting support levels. It is a futures day, and we have a crude oil chart. And you'll see, you know, we have traded down, but it looks as though, Dan, we're traded right down to this uptrend that's been in place for quite some time. So I will be the first to say I thought that would continue to the upside. I thought the move we were seeing would have gone to the high to, you know, the mid to high 90s. That did not happen. Maybe this is the best thing that can happen to crude oil.
So this is a really interesting chart to me, and I'll tell you why. You see that yellow line? That is a very flat 200-day moving average, and it's right there at $80. And then you see the move that we've had from basically above 90 back below 80, right to that uptrend that's been in place from the October lows. If you were ever going to take a shot,
this is it.
It would be it. And then the other thing, and I don't love bringing this up, but it looks like ceasefire, Gaza, not happening. If the Israelis, now they just warned civilians to leave this town of Rafah, if they dial that up, you're going to see bombs flying from Hezbollah into, let's say, you know, from the West Bank into northern Israel. And that, I'm not, listen, you know where I feel on this. Yeah. These are the sorts of things that move the price of oil. I'm not saying I'm looking forward to it. It's not saying something I'd position in front of it. And then the question is, what does Iran do in retaliation to some of this stuff? So it feels like there's been a bit of a detente, despite the fact that there really hasn't been a ceasefire. Since the Israelis pulled out of a lot of their ground troops, we've seen oil come in really hard. I'm just like bringing that up. Does that make sense? So going back to the technicals, guy.
Well, you're right to bring that up. It also is in the context of what we spent the first 10 minutes talking about, this growth
environment.
Exactly, which also makes sense. And gasoline futures have come down, and now apparently I saw, you know, David Faber's out here.
Yeah, we're gonna see.
Do
him
I get
later.
to meet him?
You know him.
No, I sort of like him. I'm sort of
he's your pal. He's the man.
No, but he was talking about how, you know, Chinese demand for gasoline is going down on the back of hybrids and electric, which is actually sort of interesting. I never really thought of that. David brought it up this morning on his show.
Well, it's interesting, just like speaking about Tesla a little bit. So a couple of weeks ago in their call, I mean, Elon Musk was emphatic that hybrids, that a lot of their competitors are kind of leaning into very hard after they've had these pretty bad forays into EVs. Like, listen, you know, GM and Ford, they've had some successes on that front. They just haven't had widespread adoption. So anybody who over the last few years wanted to buy an EV, they basically bought it from Tesla here in the US. You know what I mean? And so, one of the pillars of the bear case was that the Germans, the Koreans, the Chinese, obviously, but also Detroit, were going to come in with some really good lower cost options, which they have. Now there's just a huge glut. The fact of the matter is that Detroit is leaning really hard into these hybrids, and it seems like that's what people want right now.
I like that whole saying, think globally, act locally. Have you heard this?
Yeah, it's been around for like 30 years.
No, I understand that. Yeah. And there's a part of me that feels like I should probably get one of these, like a Prius
hybrids
or something.
I had a hybrid 20 years ago.
Yeah. It's not, it's no. And it's not going to happen. And listen,
not a Prius. You can get a really nice, I mean, I know that you're not that fancy of a guy, but you could get a really nice car. I was in one yesterday. I was in a Porsche. A friend of mine has a Porsche Taycan. The first 25 miles, that's what it's called. The first 25 miles is electric. So if you're just going to the supermarket, you're going to kids to school, it just works on the battery. And then if you get to the end of that 25 miles, it kicks into the gas.
Oh, wow.
So you would be thinking globally, acting
so
locally, because the global thing is like worrying about global warming.
I only mention this because I have few wants in life. No, I'm just going to bring this up.
You want the Rangers to win the
that's not, but I have no control over that.
No, you don't.
But at some point, hopefully, I can do a couple. I want to buy a jukebox.
Okay.
Because
with records, or they have digital
now
ones
you can put all, like, have all these CDs.
You know, they call it an iPod.
What? No. I want a jukebox with the bubbles.
Yeah.
It's I think it's
Rock and Rolla.
Yeah, Rockola, I think is the name of it. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get one of those. and I'm going to get a 1967 convertible GTO.
100%.
Black.
Yeah.
Maybe black interior.
Do you know my mom?
But you don't get the 69s because, as the guys and gals here know, they went to the Endura bumper.
Oh, yeah.
And the problem with that is it made
disaster.
sense. Didn't hold paint.
No.
So it was really bad.
Because the bumper is
designed
meant to
for-
bump into things and kind of like save the
bump.
car a little bit.
But
if
those
the bumper
cars,
doesn't
I
work-
wanted to, and listen, please don't come at me and say it's a
Come at
gas
'em.
guzzler. I'm
Come at
not
'em.
really all that interested. I'm not driving cross country.
Yeah, and
okay?
you're just tooling around. You're wearing like a black T-shirt, Levi's,
with cigarettes in the sleeve.
and the
remember in Lawrence of Flatbush?
Yeah.
They put their. You guys remember this?
Yeah.
You remember, right? They put the. You probably do. You do it? It's badass, right? But you got to have the guns to do it, which you do.
which obviously.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
We just did the Guns in Navarone last week. All right, let's rip through some
Apologize.
stuff here because I think
if I don't get enough sleep,
I know. Well, you did not
it's
get
like
enough
stream
sleep.
of
All right, so
consciousness.
crude oil at a key technical level, that uptrend has been in place in October, that flat 200-day, I think you play for a move above that, and maybe you get back towards the mid-80s. You mentioned yields earlier, guys, so we have this issuance. It's interesting. The yield, the 10-year, looks very similar to the crude chart, which looks very similar to the dollar chart if we wanted to pull up the US DXY. So again, we know the correlations there. It is interesting. They're all at key uptrend technical levels there. I want to hit this one because gold, and I heard you, I caught the back end of you and Liz talking about gold really quickly. There was an article in I think it was in the New York Times, which I was really surprised to see.
Is that Andrew Ross Sorkin's paper?
Well, it would be the deal book. That's what he does there.
He works for them.
He
too.
might be out. You might see Andrew
Yeah,
also. Yeah, you might be. And you might get to meet him, guy. Maybe I'll make an intro.
You know what's interesting about him?
What?
I'm sorry. I know we got to give up the. I guys and gals, I apologize.
I know.
But he's got two different color eyes.
I did
Like
not.
that's freaky shit.
I did not know that.
Like one eye is
Are you
blue.
doxing him right now with his
No,
eyes?
he talks about it.
Well, and anyone could see it. He just
And then the
watched my
guy that
TV.
pitched for the Mets, who sucked for the Mets,
Which guy?
which
pitcher
They all suck when they go to the Mets. Same type of thing.
You want to hear this? So yesterday I was
It's-
at Dodger.
it's
I was
not-
at
and
Dodger
you-
Stadium, and we're walking in, and we're looking, and all of a sudden we hear a crack of a bat, and we see this ball go to center field. Otani hits a home run right as we're
where
walking
were you?
in at Dodger Stadium. They're playing the Braves.
No, but what is it? What were you getting? Like you had to go to the bathroom?
No, I was going to see a baseball game.
Oh, you got there late.
Well, we literally walked in as well, it must have been the bottom of the first. So
That's a. You know why?
dude, the traffic out here is insane.
Well, I was going to say.
and I was
You know
late
why
from the
this is not?
airport. But
California is
hold
not
on
a sports
second.
state.
Yeah, you got to give
Because
some
there's
respect.
a.
I landed 11:30 and I'm walking in at 1:20. That's not bad.
No, but these people out here, that's what they have things to do.
A lot of
That's
traffic.
why they leave the games early. They don't
All right,
show up
let's
early.
get the gold.
You go to the Yankee Stadium. I mean, people ain't leaving.
No, but the games are much shorter. I got to tell you, it's awesome.
No,
They're like
they're
2.5
messing
hours.
around.
It's all right. So this is interesting to
Roy
me.
Halladay. No, it wasn't
The
Halladay.
fact that this article, and maybe Amanda or Jacob can flash this in the Times about gold, and it's just basically you guys made the point about Costco. We don't have to get into the reasons to buy it. I just think the technicals are really sweet right here. So go look at or listen to the pod that that Guy and Liz did this morning. Let's pull up the gold futures chart here, Guy. You see this 200-day, it's all the way back towards that consolidation. And you were saying at the time, something's going to happen at gold. You're going to wake up someday and we're going to go on this monster rally. Well, look at how flat that 200-day is. It just tells you how much performance has come in such a short period of time, which is why I think trading it via futures, Guy, if you think that we're like kind of on this last gas, you think that we're about to have a whole host of other issues, come about, maybe yields go back up, maybe the dollar starts going up, maybe crude starts going up, maybe growth starts to slow a little bit, then you're going to want to buy gold. And look at this thing. You see that little flag that it's forming there. You see that uptrend. If you were a buyer of gold here at 23.30, you're going to want to stop it at that uptrend. Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, it's a very tight stop, and futures allow you to do that, which is why we do a show dedicated to it. So the risk reward, again, just my opinion, but you should go and read the Chinese. Forget about the government. It's their citizenry
That's
that
what that
can't get
article is
enough
about
of
right
gold.
now, yeah.
It's amazing the demand. We talk about Costco all the time. Forget about that. It's got nothing to do with somebody walking in and buying a 1/10 of an ounce gold bar. I mean, it's interesting and all, but that's not it. It's the fact that central banks continue to buy hand over fist. And now the citizenry of China is doing the same thing. And you have to ask
what's
yourself,
your point? People here are doing it at Costco.
what are they seeing?
Yeah.
What are they seeing?
nervous
What are
about?
they nervous about? Exactly. So the risk reward sets up really well. Here's the gold futures trade idea at current levels.
But
and
does
you've
that make
outlined
sense?
it really. It makes
Targeting
perfect.
high. So
Well,
you're
yes.
risking about 20 handles here, and you're
Right.
looking to make 90, 100 if it really does break
That's the target without question. That's one way to trade it. The same way to trade it with the same stop is you have that in place. You hope you catch it cold here. And not only do you target that level, but you know what you say to yourself? I'm actually going to buy on strength. I'm going to add to a position on strength. That's sort of second derivative stuff. This is the right way to trade it. If you want to go to the $100 table, you're adding on strength here.
That's fine. All right, but I want to go to a 5-year chart because I think this is really interesting and why you would want to use a very tight stop here. So that 2300, 2310 or so. If it breaks that uptrend, Guy, and there's any reason for gold to go lower, it's kind of going back to that very long breakout level. That's probably 2150. So the idea is you use the stop. If it starts working, you raise that stop. To your point, if you get more aggressive, and you could be buying more, but you want to keep tight stops on that. But the point is, you do not want to be long this if it goes into a free fall, because the truth is, you be buyer at 2150, 2100. There's not going to be any reason, any major reason why this thing should come in really hard. Below that, you'd be a buyer there.
Well,
you
that's it. And then you're sort of zigging when you should zag. By the way, thank you, Jacob. Max Scherzer is the dude.
Oh, yeah, you can't.
So maybe if you sort of jammed Max Scherzer together with Andrew Ross Sorkin, and then they could each have the same color. One would have the right.
We got a couple minutes left here. I just want to. No, not at all. Because we only have a couple minutes. I want to hit semis really quickly, Guy. The SMH. You see that NVIDIA is back on its horse. Some of these other companies that did not have great earnings or guidance, AMD is one of them. They're having big days today. Look at that down trend from that March 8th high. We're kind of flirting with it a little bit. You can just visualize that a little bit. So money's going back into the one thing that has worked a lot. Let's go to earnings this week. There's still a few. Disney's tomorrow night after the close. I think that obviously it's pretty Disney specific. Lyft is also after the close, pretty Lyft specific. Uber is Wednesday morning, I think, and Airbnb. Those are probably more interesting to me, Guy, especially last week. We saw Expedia really take a crap. It was not good. Bookings was, like the stock did. It was just not good relative to its guidance. Uber, because DoorDash was down a lot also after their earnings. So what they have to say about rideshare, what they have to say about delivery could be interesting. What's interesting to you on this calendar?
So Tyson reported disaster, and if you pull up a long-term chart, you'll see. This stock is not half of its prior all-time high, but it's probably 60% of its all-time high. It's pretty remarkable.
TSN comes out
TSN. Yeah. So that's what. Thank you, Amanda.
Down 7.5%.
That's a good-looking chart. Okay, that's that. It's Uber, and we mentioned this last week, not necessarily what they're going to say, but that stock's had a huge run to the upside, and it's become a very large component of the transport. So if that gives it up a little bit, the transports, which I think are a bit of a double top, that will be sort of galvanized in my thought process. But the one I'm really most interested in is ARM Holdings, very mature company with minimal earnings growth. This is a company that's probably, we talked about it on one of our podcasts. It does $3 billion of revenue-ish for the last 3 or 4 years, and it trades at a pretty significant price to sales. I want to see what they have to say.
All right, really quick trivia here, and maybe some people can put it in the chat. I think you might. So Uber, it's spelled U-B-E-R. The ticker, the stock ticker, is also UBER.
Right.
Pretty cool. How many other stocks can you think of right now that are on your main set page that have basically the
NVIDIA?
Well, you're missing a couple letters. So I'm saying, to a point, Uber is UBER. That's the ticker and the company name. Can you think of one? It's a stock that you talk about quite frequently. Is another one.
Caterpillar. No, I have no
IBM.
idea. International Business Machines.
IBM, same ticker. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably
what if Gary Cohn's out here?
He probably is. There's probably a couple. He's the chairman of the board of IBM.
Big shot, president or something.
Ex Goldman with you. All right, so we covered that. All right, here's another thing.
I'd say it's so funny that there are 3 people in here with us.
Yeah,
they're bored out of their friggin'
minds. Not amused.
They're saying they're gonna say to Brent later, like, who are these assholes? Like, why do you have these people?
I think they already messaged him and said that.
Why did you guys do that?
No. All right. This is really interesting. I think a lot of our market call.
If I were in the Lords of Flatbush, I would have been like Stallone was in that. Henry Winkler was in that.
Yeah. The Fonz.
You don't care.
Yeah.
Good movie.
All right, let's just do
But I
this.
would have been one of those guys.
So we've done a few of these competitions with the CME. They launched the competitions. We just try to get some folks interested in doing them, and a lot of people have. They have thousands of people who do these paper trading competitions. This time it's going to be with commodities. They have cash prizes for this stuff. We participate in them. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to learn about how to trade, some of these instruments that are traded on the CME. So commodities this time, I think they did a crypto one. We did one in the equity index futures. That was a lot of fun. And we're going to do a little promo here. So the first 100 people that sign up, look at that. You can have a Market Call t-shirt, and those are pretty dope.
Is that a real t-shirt?
Yeah, that's good. That's coming to you. Just sign up. Here's what you do. You send a
that could be
screenshot
me.
of your sign up.
That you can't tell because it's a headless person.
It could be me. Sign up.
You look
send
at
a screenshot. Contact @risk reversal. We're only doing larges and XLs here, people. So if you're like a small person, you're going to use it as like a night shirt. I guess that's going to be the thing. But they're going to be pretty cool.
What do you consider small? Like 5'11"?
We're not doing that.
5'11".
We're not doing that.
No, I'm just curious.
I mean, because you and I are both 6'2", and so like the point is, like
I'm shrinking a little bit. Though.
I know.
You know what it is? It's because I have back pain. It's very hard for me to stand up.
Why? At your age, you start to shrink a little bit.
But getting
we're doing that. The CME is doing it. We're helping them get some of our Market Call listeners, viewers on board right there.
Know what to do.
Yeah. So what you're going to do is you're going to sign up. You're going to take a screenshot of that. You're going to send it to contact @risk reversal. You're going to get a shirt in the mail. That's pretty cool. And let's be engaged on that. And then maybe we'll highlight some of the things that we're doing in the commodity market in our little.
Load the boat on copper, biatch.
All right,
that thing's going. If
I
you
know you like Dr.
Do,
Copper. I know. Well, save it for the show. Save it for the competition. All right, we covered a lot of ground here today, guys.
You're mortified.
Have some fun with this.
Knicks play tonight.
Yeah, you're fired up. For
Knicks
that.
Pacers. Dante DiVincenzo is going to be matched up with Tyrese Halliburton, who's a friggin' stud. Yeah, and I think he wants to play for the Knicks at some point.
Well,
Donovan Mitchell took over yesterday. Good for him. So the Cavaliers.
It's a great stage if you're auditioning to be a Knick. Go put up some numbers.
I like
MSG.
this Knick team.
I
do like this Knick.
What are you going to be more disappointed about if they are to drop out of the playoffs, the Knicks or the Rangers?
Rangers.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be disappointed about this Ranger team they are built to win Lord's Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
You can just see the way
we had that great conversation with Stefan Mattel. That was last week.
That was a good conversation. I think he enjoyed it. You got a text from Pierre Turgeon.
Pierre loved it.
Which is nuts.
Yeah. He said it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to meet Pierre. He's the man.
Maybe. Is he out here?
No.
All right. Well, that's it for Market Call because they need the studio back.
Yeah, they do.
Tomorrow is Tuesday. This time tomorrow, I'll be back in New York.
Tomorrow. Great song by
Foo Fighters.
The Kinks. You know that.
I like Ray Davies and Dave Davies. I don't think they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they can't stand each other.
Oh, really?
Davies. I don't know. One of them.
They're like the Oasis brothers.
The Gallagher's. Cat's name? The Gallagher's. Yeah. They're from Ireland.
Hey, put this time tomorrow in the show notes. It's a great song by the Kinks.
Yeah. I have Celluloid Heroes live
on your playlist.
On my. Do you guys know this Spotify? You know this thing, right?
Heard of it?
875 song Spotify playlist.
It's not a playlist. It's his library, but he calls it a playlist, which is embarrassing.
There is no Food Fighters on that. There's one Metallica song.
He does that because it hurts
Turn the
me.
Page.
I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan.
Metallica did a cover of Turn the Page, 96. Remember the album? Tuesday's Gone was on that album too. They covered Skinner's Tuesday Gone. But I like the Turn the Page a little bit better.
Fair enough. All right. That was a lot of fun. We're here at Wheelhouse.
I had a lot of fun.
I'm probably going to be doing Market Call the rest of the week here. Maybe. We'll see.
Well, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
You're going to be back in New York. You're on a red eye tonight.
Carter will be on with me one day.
Tomorrow.
Elizabeth Young, EY from SoFi.
Wednesday.
Maybe we'll pull somebody else in.
Carter Thursday.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
You enjoy this or no?
That's great. Thank you.
Good looking. You see, I mean,
it's beautiful. Hey, thanks to the team here at Wheelhouse. We appreciate you guys hosting us. Thanks to all you guys for being here. Guy Adami on not a lot of sleep.
Pulling her hair.
And you know what, Amanda? Tomorrow he's going to be on a red eye, so he's only going to get like 5 hours of sleep. He's going to be the same. All right. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.